Hello, everyone. This is Alex Tremble, and thank you so much for joining us on the Executive Appeal Podcast. As you know, this show, along with all of our speaking, coaching, and consulting services, are laser focused on helping organizations prepare high performing leaders from all backgrounds to successfully transition to and excel in VP and Senior VP executive level positions. And if you and your organization are serious about developing diverse and highly effective executive leadership teams, then yeah, you're in the right place. And two, I encourage you to reach out to us at gpsleadership.org or reach out to us at team@gpsleadership.org so we can discuss how we can work together to help you reach your organization's leadership and culture elevation goals. Next, the Executive Appeal is now one of the top 5%, yes, 5% most popular shows in the world. And this didn't happen by accident. It was you who made this happen. It will be you who decides the continued success of this show. So please, if you enjoy this content, if you're growing and learning with us and you want this to keep rolling, and do us a favor, please click that like button. Please subscribe. Please share your thoughts and questions in the comment section, and be sure to share this episode with at least one or two of your colleagues today. Finally, I am so excited to announce that my new book, Relationships That Work: 4 Simple Steps to Building Intentional Connections in Business and in Life, is now available for purchase on Amazon.com. Look, if you're an ambitious leader who inspires to rise to the most senior executive level positions within your industry, this book will provide you with the step-by-step process to making your career dreams a reality. Seriously, if you are tired and frustrated because you're doing everything you possibly can to gain the influence to get your next promotion, but you're just not receiving the results that you're looking for, you really need to read this book today. So click on the link in the description below to purchase your copy of Relationships That Work: 4 Simple Steps to Building Intentional Connections in Business and in Life, so that you can learn how to build the powerful network of leaders to help you reach your personal and professional goals. Now, with no further ado, let me say, today is a good day. See, today we have the always wonderful, the always awesome, the always authentic Miss Erica Rooney. Erica serves as the Chief People Officer at Blue Acorn ICI. She is a member of the awesome organization, Chief. She's the host of the podcast From Now to Next, and a wife and mom of 2 beautiful little kids. Erica has over 15 years of experience in varying areas of human resources, employee engagement, health and wellness, and employee experience. Her passion lies in elevating the employee experience through the holistic approach, focusing on growth and development, connecting passion with purpose, and aligning career with core values. She lives in the Research Triangle Park area of North Carolina. You'll hear this in a second, with her husband, Dan, and her 2 beautiful kids, Hudson and Halle. She enjoys running half marathons and reading historical fiction novels. With no further ado, how are you doing today, madam?
I am fabulous. It's so good to be here. How are you?
I I am well rested.
Liar.
We-
Liar, liar, pants on fire. Come on now.
See, the crowd doesn't know this. This
Well, the
inside
crowd
thing.
about to find out.
Well,
Alex is a new dad.
oh, and this little, so weird. I was telling you that it's so weird. Like, I love this guy. He's only been around for a little bit, but he is just so freaking awesome. And though he like cries and just yells and yells, and poops and all those good things, I can't stop loving him. It's so weird.
It always reminds me of the Grinch movie where like the heart just grows, and it expands. That's always what it goes to because it's not ever like there's not enough room for it. Your love just expands. And so it's such an exciting time for you. I'm so happy.
Thank you so much, Eric. And honestly, I love that you brought this up because I have a question for you. Um, as I have been going down this journey as a new dad, one of the things, maybe it's just in the movies, I used to see movies and people like really frustrated when babies were crying. And like, like they're tired and they're annoyed and like, why won't this baby stop crying? I'm doing everything I can. And that hasn't been my personal experience. And I say that because the way I've been looking at it is this is the only way this baby knows how to communicate. He's not saying I'm a bad parent. He's not saying that you're horrible and you're dumb. It's like, I'm hungry. I want to be held. I want to be fed. I got a poopy diaper. This is the only way he knows how to communicate. So I'm not taking it personally, and I'm not holding it against him. And it makes me think about the quote unquote real world that we, not real world, but the business where we live in, because sometimes people are communicating with us in a way that we don't like, that doesn't make us feel good, and we take it personally. And sometimes the person doesn't mean it, but that's the only way they know how to communicate. I'd love to just hear your thoughts from this experience I'm having.
Well, I think it's very interesting, your choice of words, and I'll dive into that because you said it's the only way he knows how. This baby's what, a few days old? He doesn't know anything. Okay. It's the only way he can communicate.
Mm,
And that is the exact same way for people in the workplace. Sometimes the way people communicate with you may be great, maybe not so great. It might be the only way they can communicate because it is the only way they have been taught over time.
mm,
So that's what I find very fascinating just about the word choices here. And what's also interesting too is this tiny little baby that you have, every time he cries and you feed him or change him or rock him or comfort him, you are now solidifying those neural pathways, which are days old, about if I do this, then I get this response from
mhm,
someone, right? I'm
mhm.
hungry, I cry, I get fed.
Yeah.
And they learn these things. So I love talking about this, and it's a perfect example, but our minds do this constantly. And right now, your son has this blank slate about all of the things. So it's so important from day one, right, that we
Yeah.
start teaching him that, yes, I am here to take care of you and I am here to protect you. And I will do all of these things. And as he grows and develops and learns a language, those neural pathways about your love and connection will already be in place.
Dude, I mean, again, this is why I love chatting with you. I love chatting with you. So, I mean, you just to continue on this line of thinking, it then makes me think about the habits that my wife and I are already worried about. Like, if we do something so many times, will he become dependent on it? Will he become a habit where he can only do this or only wants this or that? And it makes me think again about the workplace, and that how we respond to people, and how they interact with us creates an expectation, right? Baby cries, we do something, he learns, oh, if I want something, I'm going to cry. And I do it. So, what do you, let's think about the workplace. Are there ever times when there are, let's say, not positive behaviors that leaders react to and then actually feed into those negative behaviors continuing?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. And it goes all sorts of ways. So, for example, if you have an employee that maybe has a bad behavior, like coming in late every single day, and you do nothing as a leader to say, hey, our expectation was that you're here at 9, you weren't here at 9. They then learn very quickly, it's okay if I don't come in at 9. I can come
Mhm.
in at 10 or 11 or whenever I feel like it because they're not saying anything. Then other people start to see that and they think, great, I can come in too at 10, 11, 12 o'clock. And now you have this whole dysfunctional workforce. So you see that from the employees if they have bad behavior and you don't respond and set expectations. And then
Mhm.
you also have that in the instance of if you present yourself as a leader that, let's say, yells or raises their voice when
Mhm.
someone does something incorrect,
Yeah.
they notice your reaction very quickly. And then they know instinctively, I can't trust that person, or I can't trust to make a
Mm.
mistake. I can't trust a fail here, right? And it's such a buzzword, fail, face your fears, all of these things, which I wholeheartedly embrace.
Mhm.
But if you are in an organization that does not truly back that up by saying, okay, yeah, that didn't work. What are we going to do this time? Then you're not going to embrace that. So I had one employee, she came from a completely different industry, used to hide her mistakes from me all the time. And what ended up happening is those mistakes, she would attempt to fix them because she was so terrified that she made a mistake that she would get in trouble. And it made the mistake worse. And then we would find out. And I was like, why didn't you tell me? Now we have all these other things that we have to
Mhm.
fix. And now that she's been with me for, oh gosh, almost 2 years now, she's recognized that it's okay to fail and make the mistakes, right? And when she comes to me, and I was so proud of her the first time she did it, she was like, I did this. And like, oops. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, did you do steps 1, 2, and 3 to fix that? And like, let's make sure we talk to this other person so they can make sure they fix it on their end too. And she's like, oh no, I didn't do that. I'm like, cool, great, do that. Guess what? Nobody got hurt. Nobody died. No, the business didn't explode. And then we had that moment, and I waited another couple days, and I had a second follow-up meeting with her. And I said, I just want to take a minute to let you know how proud I was that you came to me and that you said your mistake. I said, because you never used to do that. You used to try to fix it on your own. And that's not the point here. You know, we're not here to do this by ourselves. And I'm never going to get mad at you for coming to me and saying that you did a mistake. I'm going to get mad at you if you try to cover it up and you don't tell me and I have to hear about it from somebody else.
You know, I love I love that you went in that direction, because like you said, it's not only on the behaviors that are not wanted in the workplace, but it's also the behaviors that are wanted, right? You have to reinforce those. You know, just if you have a great employee doing something, you can't just say, oh, well, good, they were supposed to do that. Like, you should call them out. Say, like I said, I was proud of you. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. And then they know, okay, yeah. I'm gonna keep doing this. I love that. And then you brought up the I was telling my wife the other day, again, all this baby talk. If you remember oh my God, what's it called? The baby powder, Johnson and Johnson thing. Now, again, I'm not going to talk about the details of it, but they got in a lot of trouble. But one of the things that made it worse was not that they had an issue with their formula, was that they tried to cover it up. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, they knew that the cover up is, like, there's a quote, like, right? The cover up is always worse than the initial infraction, right? And so we have to, as leaders, be willing to create these environments where it's not just saying, oh yeah, fell fast, fell early. Yeah. Saying that doesn't mean anything if you're not backing it up and providing the space to fail and saying, hey, great job. How did you do this? You know, what can you do differently? Like, coaching them through that process, you know?
Well, and one thing I want to hone in on is that every single employee that you have is going to be different, because we all have different lived experiences. If my last supervisor yelled at me and berated me every single time I made a mistake, I would be terrified, and my brain would be constantly trying to protect me and saying, yeah, don't own up to that, Erica. Try to fix it. You need to fix it, right? But if I come from a background where I feel supported in my failures, then I will be way more confident in coming forward and saying, hey, I made this mistake. And one of the areas of HR and corporate culture that I'm really kind of diving into and exploring is this whole DEIB space. And I am looking at it through the lens of, I think we're missing a big chunk of DEIB in that we are talking a lot about race, ethnicity, and all that, which is super important and very necessary because representation matters. But there's also so much under, like layers and layers under, which is what I'm looking at as the human experience, which is the lived experience of all these people. We have such a huge workforce and so many different areas of people that we are not even touching on in the workforce, like fears of failure, neurodivergence, alcohol and addiction. Like, all of these are aspects of the human that impacts how they show up at work that we're not even touching on. So I kind of took a hard left there. But when we were talking about these lived experiences of people, right, which does take into account like our race and our ethnicity and our upbringing, and all of that, right? But I could have an identical twin, Erica, sitting next to me that completely had a whole different lived experience. And they are going to show up to the same job completely differently.
Yeah. I want to continue talking, pulling on that thread. I want to say one thing, because you said so much. So you make me think of a concept that I've been thinking about. I've never said it publicly. Kind of want to get myself in trouble. But let's go. So it's the concept of the bad relationship. So, you know, there are going to probably be really careful saying this. I don't get people get upset with me. But you say a guy or a gal or somebody, you say somebody gets into a relationship with somebody else, and they have the ability, and the relationship just isn't clicking because the other person doesn't trust them or does things that are weird, right? And it's not that that person's bad, but it's because the relationship prior they had to act like that to survive, to protect themselves, because it wasn't a great relationship, right? But now the new person they're with is dealing with all of those
Mhm.
challenges of
Baggage.
all the baggage. So
Mhm.
take that from a quote unquote personal relationship to an employee employer relationship, and you have leaders who have to manage people who maybe had a bad leader before, and they were going to be the bad leader didn't trust people, or they yelled at people, things like that. So they had to protect themselves. Maybe they didn't share all the information. They documented everything, and now it
I
makes
was
you
just
feel.
about to say, Alex, how many times have you been like, "Well, Imma get that in writing," and, like, cover, the
Hmm.
CYA trail, right? Like,
Hmm.
why do we need CYA trails? Sometimes we do because of bad relationships.
Exactly. So my question here, and then we're going to go back on that broader topic you were just talking about, is like, I speak to so many leaders who are dealing with situations like they're doing everything they can to be inclusive, to be authentic, to provide trust and autonomy, but the person before just, they had a bad boss or a bad situation before, and now they're being drained as a leader. Like, so what would you say to that leader? Like, they're doing everything they possibly can, but the person has baggage.
Listen, it can be really hard, and I had my first experience with that, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, and it was really hard because I felt like I was showing up as a good leader. I was being honest, I was setting clear expectations, and this person just was not meeting my expectations, and we would have open conversations about that, and it was this constant back and forth. And after doing a ton of digging and, like, just really trying to get to the bottom of things with this person, I recognized that it wasn't about me. It was about what that person had experienced at previous companies. And it was also about a lot that was going on in that person's personal life,
Mhm,
right? Because
mhm,
going back to baggage, you can't leave your baggage at the door,
mhm.
right? Like, you have to show up fully as your whole self every single day. You don't get to be like, well, I had a bad day at home, so I'm going to drop that baggage at the door. No, you show up pissed off, right? Because your spouse did whatever. I don't know. Your kids were a mess. All of that comes with you to work. And this person was really struggling in her home life, and it was showing up, and it
Yeah.
was just seeping out. And she and I ended up having a really hard conversation where I was like, look, I'm going to put it all out there. Like, this is what I think that you can do in this role. And I am here to support you in whatever that looks like. But you're at a crossroads, and you
Yeah.
either need to take a left and come with me, or you need to go right, and that's find a different opportunity, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm putting it all out there. And
Yeah.
sometimes it comes to that. And what I will say is that person really had to sit with that for
Mhm,
a while. And as a leader, I gave her the space to sit with that, because you also can't
mhm.
rush that. You can't
Yeah.
be like, all
Yeah.
right, give me an answer by lunch. Okay. Because we got to know. So you have to give them the space
Mhm.
to sit with those thoughts and those ideas. And what do they want to do? Right. Maybe it's not the right time for them to step up. Maybe they
Yeah.
can't. I don't know. So you give them the space, and you be that leader to be supportive. And you can set your own expectations of, you know what, I'm going to give this person a week. And
Yeah.
at the end
Yeah.
of that week, we'll have another discussion. And this person, they turned it around. They, pulled themselves up by the bootstraps, and they were like, okay, this is what I want. This is where I'm going to be. And
Yeah.
that person is still on my team today. And
Awesome.
we have a great relationship, and things are very positive, and they're moving in the right direction. But when you are that leader and you're like, I don't understand, I'm providing these opportunities, I'm open, but they're not sharing, or they're not doing this, like, sometimes it's not about you.
Mhm. Hold up. Hold
Most of
up.
the time it's
Some
not about
what? Sometimes it's not about what? What?
you. Got to leave that ego at the door, y'all.
That is crazy. What's it called? Oh my God, there's so many things I want to talk to you about. Okay. How about really quickly? I'd love to get your thoughts on, like, how do you build mutually beneficial and intentional relationships with someone who you don't like or who doesn't like you? And I'm going to give you a little preface. So this is what I focus on in my practice. helping people build these relationships and navigate political environments within their organizations, right? And I was talking to a chief human capital officer of a large organization. He was like, "Yeah, like this one of our biggest problems is that when we elevate people to those chief roles, those senior executive roles, it's a different game. Like you have powerful people. Everyone in the room has a level of power and a level of a chip on their shoulder because they had to have it to get to that level. So that's when their biggest challenges, and that's why organizations bring me in to help them build those leaders in those capacities. How would you? How do you go about building relationships with people either you don't like or who don't like you?
Oh, I feel like that's a loaded question. And it's necessary, right? I tell people all the time, you're not a buffet. You're not here to serve everybody, and not everybody's going to like you. But if you are going to be successful, you've got to have executive presence, right? And that executive presence, a piece of that is showing up authentically, being able to build relationships. And I think a piece of that is recognizing that you also don't have to like everybody. If you can recognize that, number one, you're not going to like everybody and everybody is not going to like you, but we do have to work well together,
Mhm,
and we
mhm.
are all going after the same goal. If you can get everybody on that page,
Yeah.
you can drive the boat forward. What ends up happening in a lot of these C-level positions is you have somebody who says they're on your same page, but they're really rowing in the opposite direction. And I have seen that too. And that's where you get that real big culture problem and the dissonance going on.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm a big fan of feedback,
Yeah.
and I'm a big fan of listening to people's feedback. And I'm also a fan of recognizing that not all feedback is good feedback. And I'll give you an
Mhm.
example. So when I first started in my executive role, I did a 360 review as part of my leadership development. And for the most part, got great feedback about where I could work on, what opportunities I could, strengthen, and where I really shined. And there was this one piece of feedback that said something about, if Erica toned down her message a bit, she would be better received. And of course, I ignored all the other feedback, and that was the only piece that mattered. So I was like, oh my God. And I felt like I needed to shrink myself. I am a
Yeah.
loud person. I am extra. I always say E is for extra. Like that is just me. I say all the time to my husband when he's like, tone it down. I'm like, if you want less, you can go find less. I'm extra. That's just me. And I felt in that one instance that I had to shrink myself to fit this little executive box, that I wasn't
Mm.
showing up and I wasn't going to be effective.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me for a little bit. And I was telling my mom about it. And she was like, what the heck, Erica? Like, let that go. She's like, that's what got you here.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
that big
Yeah.
saying of like, what got you here won't get you there. And
Mhm,
I
mhm.
believe that, but it is what got you here. And
Yeah.
that was a big piece of who I was. Now, what that piece of feedback did is it taught me how to work with that person, right?
Mm.
I am not a quiet person. I don't tone things down. But when I worked with that person, I did. And some people will tell you, like, oh, you're being a chameleon, you're changing yourself. No, I'm working effectively with people. I have the emotional intelligence to tone it down so that I can get what I want out of this relationship, which is a collaborative working environment. It's not changing who I am.
I love it. I actually, it's funny. I actually talk about that in the book Relationships at Work with the point of the 360-degree assessment. So again, I'm an IO psychologist, so I grew up doing all this assessment and whatnot. And the one thing that I learned, the last few years, well, number of years ago now, is 360-degree assessments can't be used all the time. And here's my point. If you tell your team and people around you to assess someone on their communication skills, and they assess them, hey, here's the feedback and so on and so forth. Um, is it the same amount of data? Is the same quality of data if you haven't first figured out if those people assessing know how to communicate effectively, right? And you can
They
have people who
usually
are
don't.
exactly. So now you have people who are ineffective communicators saying, "Hey, this person's a horrible communicator or a great communicator." Um, so for those purposes, I'm really hesitant on using 360 degree assessments. But I think they are a great tool for identifying perceptions, right?
Mhm.
Because if someone says you're horrible or a great communicator, doesn't mean they're right or wrong, but it does mean that this is how they see you. And now you have the
Yes.
ability to say, oh, okay, well, do I want to do something about this? Like you said, do I want to change how I'm communicating? And you may have said yes, you may have said no, but now you have the choice, the information to make that decision, you know?
Absolutely. And where I find a lot of like the pushback that I get when I tell this story is like, oh, you're changing yourself, to fit this. And I'm like, oh, not at all.
Yeah.
I know exactly what I am doing when I show up to have a
Hmm.
conversation with this person. And I know exactly what I need to do to get what I want out of this relationship,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
So it's all about showing up like that. And guess what? At the end of the day, I'm the one with the emotional intelligence, being the air quote adult in the room to show up and drive the business forward,
Yeah.
right? And so the more that you can look at what the feedback is that you're getting, take what works for you,
Hmm.
and look at the rest as a gift of how to better work with somebody, then all feedback is a gift, right? So even that feedback that is not good feedback is still a gift.
Oh, so I have to squeeze this in. I know we're getting to a point where you got to jump out, but um, how does this and in your thoughts relate to sticky floors? And we're not talking about sticky floors in regards to the movie theater, everyone. Just FYI. Okay, please, Ms. Erica, will you talk about your concept of sticky floors?
Yes. So I talk about sticky floors all day long, and I'm a mom. So most people are like, oh, what do you clean with? No, I don't clean my floors. My husband does that. Okay. Thank you. Sticky floors for me are the limiting beliefs and the toxic behaviors that keep us from busting through the glass ceiling. And what I mean by that is there are so many isms out there in the world. There's racism, sexism, ageism, ableism, and those things weight us down. But there is so much that is within our internal control that keeps us weighted down that we can break free from through the use of what I call my SNAP method, which is stop, name it, ask and answer some really tough questions, and then pivot your mindset so that you can break through the glass ceiling. So those sticky floors can show up like perfectionism, imposter syndrome, fear, burnout, too much wine, a toxic relationship, you name it. I probably had it. It's there, but we have so much more control than we give ourselves credit for. And if you are in a toxic relationship or a toxic work environment and you sit there and you say, well, I can't do anything because my boss is like this, you still have the choice to be in that room or not. And I'm
Mm,
not saying quit your job. We all got bills to pay, right? What I'm saying is then take the steps necessary to get out of that room, fix up that resume, apply for a job. You have control over your life, right? So clean up your sticky floors, focus in on what those limiting beliefs are that are holding you back, and you'll climb any corporate ladder in a matter of minutes.
Erica, you know, uh, my I love what you just said so much. So my my wife and I were having dim sum a few months ago, and this guy, we were trying not to make eye contact because we could see he wanted to talk to us the next table
Oh,
over. Like he really wanted to talk to us. So it's like intentionally, and all of a sudden, I accidentally made that eye contact. He was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And he started talking to me, and he starts telling me about how his childhood was really rough and how I don't understand how it is to grow up where he was and so on and so forth. And there was no choice. When you grow up in this environment, there's just no choice. And I said, well, sir, like, there is a choice. There's not, when things are this rough. And I'm like, well, no, I mean, I am with you. Like it's absolutely rough. I know people in some really messed up situations. And there's always a choice. It could be an uncomfortable choice. It could maybe that's not the choice you want, but ultimately you have a choice. And I try to I try to convey that to everyone I coach and mentor as well, is that things you, you can control you. If you don't like a situation, it's great to say, oh, that person doesn't like me and they're not supporting me and they never want to elevate me and so on and so forth. But what are you doing to change that situation?
Mhm.
Even if it is, maybe they are being an a-hole. Great, cool. If you can't change it, what does it matter? What are you doing yourself to position yourself to get to where you want to be versus just stick around and complain? I'm sorry I'm being real, everyone, right now, but I'm not sorry. I'm being real, everyone, right now. Like, if you want something different, you have to be willing to do something different to get it. Sorry, I got on
And
that soapbox.
yeah, no, I'm completely right there with you because I have heard so many people say, well, I can't do this or they won't let me do that or whatever the
Hmm.
situation is. But the truth is, if you are a, healthy adult, right, you have the capability to change anything where you live, what you do, your
Hmm.
education. And again, it will be super easy for some and it will not be easy for others. There is
Hmm.
privilege. People have privilege all over the place, right?
Absolutely.
That does exist, but it doesn't mean that it stops you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about, oh my God, Mary Cloud Bethune, Carter G. Woodson, Frederick Douglass. There's so many names. I'm just thinking about literally phenomenal African American leaders who were around during like real slavery and then like real segregation, right?
Yep.
Like they would sit up here and pull up and try to lynch someone for doing something crazy or not even doing something crazy, right?
Right.
Um,
For
and they
walking
were
down the
still,
street.
yeah, and they were still able to become banking leaders, still be able to run their own organizations and businesses. Like there's the possibility. Yes, it's hard. I mean, I'm not downplaying anyone's challenges, but what I do want to make the point is that if you want something, if you really want it, don't let someone else decide whether you can have it, right?
I know we're supposed to be wrapping up here, but now you got me going down a different road. And I want to talk about the power of visualization for one second,
Mhm,
because
mhm,
some people think that this is such a foo-foo exercise. And like, okay, if I visualize that, right, like having millions of dollars, then that's not going to happen. No, you got to work for it, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
when your brain, when you really visualize everything using all of your senses, what it feels like inside, what it feels like on the outside, what it smells like, what it looks like, the experience of it, the brain actually does not know the difference from a visualized experience to a real experience. But
yeah.
until you start actually visualizing some of those experiences, they will never happen. And when I was studying a lot of this kind of quantum physics aspect of the things, I really honed in on Martin Luther King Jr., right? Who visualized that we
Mhm,
would have this life where little brown and black kids could play with little white kids and it would just be a normal thing, right? Do you think
mhm.
that happened anywhere else before he had that visualization? Absolutely not.
Mm,
But you have to sit there and you have to visualize it and believe it. And then you got to do
yeah,
the work.
yeah.
And that work is not easy. I don't think anybody could sit there and say, well, what he did was easy. No,
Mhm,
he had to go against everyone and what they thought and what they knew and what they believed and what they had grown up with and what they had
mhm.
experienced to get us to a place where now we can live like that. So,
I I
amen.
can't.
Went to church,
Look,
came back.
we over here, we have in church. Not everyone, we have in church over here. What's called
I know, right? I told you I was going to go. Pull me back. You pulled me back. Well,
okay,
those
I
big
gotta say,
dreams.
go on.
I was just gonna say those big dreams and stuff, like they can happen. They're not
Oh,
gonna happen overnight, and it's gonna take work and sometimes decades and generations,
mhm,
right? But it's
mhm.
not going to happen unless you take control over it and put one foot in front of the other.
And one last thing I'm gonna say on this, 'cause I know you're supposed to be jumping off the line to go talk to Elon Musk or something. What's it called? I
Not him, I tell you
Well,
that.
maybe not Elon. I can't use that one. Not right now, anyway. I was talking to someone the other day. Like, oh, you're gonna talk to Kanye? They're like, not right now. Like,
Yeah.
he's
We're
not.
gonna let
I
him
don't.
come back around, do a
Yeah.
little work on himself first.
But one of the things again I love to focus on when you're talking about relationships, you're talking about building connections, whether with your staff, with your clients, whether with community stakeholders, whatever it is. What you're talking about is some degree of influence, of influencing people, not in a bad way, just because the whole point of leadership is to influence someone to do something, right? The same thing for a relationship. You want to build a relationship where each of you are able to influence each other in a healthy, ethical way to ultimately arrive at a certain solution that benefits everyone, right? And when you think of MLK, it you brought home the point for me that ultimately he had the vision, He had the motivation. He was able to influence people, but when it came down to it, he was able to build very intentional connections and relationships because he could not have done that alone. He
Nope.
had to bring so many people on that ride with him, whether it be the boycotts, the bus protests, marches. It wasn't. He couldn't have done it by himself. He had to be able to establish relationships and connections with people who could help move this movement with him, whether it be people who liked him or didn't like him, whether it be people in Congress, whether it be people in business, whether it be people in who were just living on the day to day as normal quote unquote people. It's all about how can we build relationships with those people and then bring those masses together, bring our teams together, bring our colleagues, our customers together to ultimately achieve a particular outcome.
And can I tell you what the building block of influencing people
Mm.
is believing the best in people.
Oh, absolutely.
Because so many people
Absolutely.
go in with this complete opposite, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or let's say you look at me sideways when we logged on to this podcast, right? Because you're tired, because you're a new dad. And I'm like, well, he's a jerk, right? Like I don't even know why I'm here. No, maybe believe the best. Maybe sit there
Yeah.
and say, you know what? Maybe he's tired and he didn't get sleep. What can I do to serve him today? And taking it back to MLK, he believed the best in humankind, right? He didn't see it
Mhm.
every day, but he
Mhm.
showed up and he believed it every day.
And you use that S word too. You use that S word. I got to say it. Service, right?
Mhm.
Serving others. I truly do believe that the foundation of any healthy relationship is service, providing some way of providing value to someone. I always say my wife doesn't love me just because I'm me. She loves me because I do things that makes her happy. I support her, and I love her for the same thing. She's there for me when I have a shoulder to cry on, whatever it is. Like it's about providing value, service to other people. And again, this is not being used. I'm not saying everyone should go out there and get used because I do believe that relationships where it's only one-sided consistently over a period of time, that's not a healthy relationship. I know people who are just the kindest people. I know an executive who was a really kind individual, and I was trying, I'm coaching and mentoring him, and I'm like, hey, this guy that you have on your staff, he's not looking out for your best interest. No, 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 he
Yeah,
wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do that, and just kept supporting me, elevating the
but
guy,
he might.
and found himself out of a job. The other guy circumvented him, got his
Mm,
boss to get rid of him, and he became the new person. It's like
mm.
you you have to be eyes wide open. So yes, you want to be great and think the best of people, but you also have to be eyes wide open. And so again, as you get to those levels, me and Erica were talking about, there's heavy hitters out there who don't always have the best interest of the organization at heart. Maybe it's just their own professional career, and you may be in the way of what they want. So I know I've been talking a lot. Miss Erica, I'd like to open the floor to you. Is there anything you'd like to share as we begin to wrap up?
I would love for people to connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I put so much out there that I think is just amazing for people in their leadership journeys. And I share a lot about myself because for me, knowing that someone else has been through it really helped me on my journey. So connect with me there. I have a book coming out in November. Yes, called Glass Ceilings and Sticky Floors. So
Awesome.
I will have all of that information all over my socials, but follow me on the podcast from now to next, and I will see you there.
So, I'm going to have to get your book. We're going to read each other's books so we can have another
Amen.
conversation
That's
about
right. Part two.
I'm looking forward to it. Hey, everyone, you know where I'm going with this. Did you find something of value? Did anything sit on your heart today? Well, if it did, then don't keep it to yourself. Don't just look back, reach back, bring someone else to the table, bring this content to them. Because if it helped you in any way, I promise you, it's going to help someone else. So make sure you click the like, subscribe, take the share button. If you're on LinkedIn, please share your thoughts and comments, push back. We'd love to hear if the ideas that we shared today were of value to you. And then finally, my new book, Relationships at Work. Please, 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 I'm telling you, this book will help anyone who's interested in building intentional relationships with their team members, with their customers, with their stakeholders, with senior leaders to position yourself in your next opportunity. This book is a book that you need to read. Sorry. This book is the book you need to read in regards to that. So Relationships at Work, available on Amazon. As always, I encourage everyone, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Executive Appeal with Alex Tremble. I invite you to follow The Executive Appeal wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me, your host, Alex Tremble, across all socials or via email for exclusive webinars, courses, and in speaking engagements on continued topics of executive leadership. So until next time, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving.